In this video, we are most excited to be joined by Kath from Buzz Child Contact Centre. Kath works at a centre that has shown great innovation in its approach to fundraising, and this can be a particularly daunting and time-consuming task. I'm looking forward to hearing about how she has achieved such diversity in her income revenue and what this means for the running of the centre. That's enough from me for now, although I'll be back once we have heard from Kath herself. With that in mind, I will hand over to Kath from Buzz Child Contact Centre.
Hi, I'm Kath. I'm manager of Buzz Child Contact Centre in Sheffield, as Kelly said. Thanks for that, Kelly. Delighted to be here today as part of NACCC AGM. I'm going to talk a little bit about funding and sustainability, but first of all, I'm just going to start with our story as an organisation. So Buzz was set up in 1999 as Springfield Play Partnership. We were set up as an after-school club in response to parents asking for somewhere safe for their children to play after school. It was a partnership between Springfield Primary School and Spurgeon's. Spurgeon's are an international voluntary organisation, and at the time they worked nationally, and they always worked in partnership, so we became one of their partners. I got the job as the after school club leader, and I also had some hours for community development, and that is when I started learning about funding and sustainability. As part of that, I was tasked to find out what people wanted, what the community needed, make it happen, secure the funding, and then put all the practical elements into place, so running the actual services, and of course the essential bit, which is to try and make it sustainable. I was so lucky at that time though to have the support of Spurgeon's, who managed our payroll, our HR, helped us with policies, and I had my manager Ralph, who was just the best mentor. He not only supported me to achieve the best for the organisation, but also to achieve my personal best really, and help me with my personal development. So Ralph was just amazing. He is still a chair of our trustees to this day, and I am a huge fan of mentors and of on-the-job coaching, but that's a whole other story. So back in about 2004, my job share and I knew there was huge potential for the organisation, but we couldn't make that happen because we were running all the services. So that probably sounds familiar to a lot of people. We went and spoke to Ralph in supervision about coming out of the practice and managing the services, developing the work and bringing someone else in to run the services. So Ralph's response was, yeah, go for it. If you can find the money to do that, do it. And so we did. So we set up as a charity. We got a children in need bid. We got a national lottery bid, and then we got some small grants as well, just to support the work we were doing. Jump forward again to 2013, when we first, which is really when we first got interested in or heard about really child contact. We'd moved away from Spurgeon's because they'd restructured and they weren't working in Sheffield anymore. We'd sourced our own payroll and HR, and that was all quite scary, but we got through all that. And we'd also made the decision to move to more accessible premises. And one of our team mentioned that she'd done some volunteering at a child contact centre at St Andrews and said, oh, it's a fantastic space. Let's go and have a look. So we went and had a look. And then, so by 2015, we settled into St Andrews, and the Child Contact Centre asked me to write a funding bid for them. So they asked me to write a small grant to children in need, which I did. Obviously, as you're writing a funding bid for someone, you're asking lots of questions, finding out all about their organisation and what they do. And I became fascinated by the work of the Child Contact Centre. It was also clear that they just didn't feel they had the skills to take things forward and apply for multi-year bids. So by now, the whole team at Buzz were fascinated by the work of the Child Contact Centre. We didn't know much about child contact, but we'd worked with vulnerable children and families and high levels of conflict since 1999. So when they approached us and said, would you take it on? Would you like to take it on? We bit their hand off, really, and secured multi-year funding, and we've not looked back. In terms of funding and sustainability, at that point, though, we were now juggling more than we'd ever juggled. We were running lots of projects in the community and the contact centre. We went to the NACCC AGM and we were inspired by the speakers. We soaked up the information in the group discussions. And then the speaker from the National Centre for Domestic Violence started his talk with the words, "We do one thing and one thing only." And I turned to Paula, who is the contact centre coordinator, lots of you will know, and I said, I want to do that. I want that for us. I want us to do one thing, and I want us to do it well. So another thing that happened at the same time as that was we got a no from a funding bid I'd put into Kelly Family Trust, and what they said was, you're not a child contact centre, you deliver some child contact, and we support child contact centres. That resonated with me because I totally agreed with what they were saying. At this point it was lockdown. Lockdown was a real turning point for us as an organisation. Centres were closing, need was growing, our referrals had increased by 200%. We wanted to respond to that need, and we had to think like a business if we wanted to survive and actually to thrive in what was proving to be a really, really challenging time, as everybody listening to this knows. So for us, this was an opportunity as well. So I proposed to trustees that we flip our focus and we become a child contact centre with an interest and support for the community it's based in, rather than a community group who do a bit of child contact, which is what I felt we were. So yeah, we felt we want to do one thing and we want to do it well. Our work had become diluted. We needed to restructure. So we came up with a new plan in response to need, and we set about securing funding, making sure it'd be sustainable from the start. Not 100% sustainable, but we still need the security that multi-year funding brings. So we still need the infrastructure so we can pay our rent and pay for insurance, but we are bringing an income in for the charity. How we did that, I wrote a business plan and secured funding for a new website to do the NACCC enhanced accreditation, to train 2 members of staff in mediation, and to train 2 members of staff in Makaton. So now, present day, we offer all forms of contact with funded places available and mediation. I've got a few small funding bids in towards a parent support project we're working on, and I'm currently looking for funding for children's pre-visits and familiarisation sessions, and also some parenting sessions. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm doing the consultation and research for our next multi-year bid, ready for spring 2022. So we still support the community that we're based in. As I said, we are a food hub for Food Works, and they can order frozen meals from us. And also we take donations from Food Hall, so they give us lots of things like tea bags and cereals, and we give that out to the community and anyone who uses our child contact centre. And we still put the kettle on once a week to welcome the people who did used to come to one of our groups, who are now friends of Buzz. So my role has changed dramatically, as have the services we offer. But I think the principles, the core principles, are still the same. So find out what people want, what the community needs, find the money for it, and then keep it sustainable. In terms of how we're sustainable, we have income from supervised contact, some income from supported contact, multi-year funding, so 3-year lottery funding or children in need funding, 1-year funding like Awards for All and other similar organisations, small local grants like Sheffield Town Trust. We do annual fundraisers. We work in partnership. We engage volunteers. We have students on placement, and we have support from businesses who give their time to charities. So through Sheffield Business Together, we've been put in touch with Erwin Mitchell, who are helping us create an IT system that is fit for purpose for our referrals, and also to track our impact. So that's how we're sustainable. It's not just funding or income. There's lots of other things that help us remain sustainable. And one of our biggest forms of support, of course, is NACCC. And we frequently pick Phil's brains. He gets lots of emails from me. And more recently, since we've met, Kelly's as well. So we massively appreciate the support of everybody at NACCC. So that's us, that's our story. I've got some top tips for successful funding bids that I'm going to share with you now. So for me, the first thing you should do before you do anything is consultation with your service users and your community. So find out what they want and find out what they need. It sounds so obvious, but when it comes to doing the funding bid, not only will it give you the conviction to write the bid, the passion, you really want to get this, be successful with this bid, it will also give it clarity. Join a mailing list for your voluntary action or your funding advice service, and check out your local community foundations as well. Work with your service users to develop the idea. So don't stop at the first consultation. Keep dipping in, keep working with them, checking in that what you're putting in the funding bid is what they were talking about when you first asked them. Get to know your potential funders. So start local, or funders who definitely have a similar community of interest to you. Keep an eye on submission dates as well and notification dates, because obviously there's no point applying for funding you need in 3 months if a funder turns around and says you'll get an answer in 6 months. And just remember that it does all seem a bit daunting, but they're all humans at the other end. So, get to know them, research them, follow them on socials, tag them, ask them questions, just keep in touch with them. When you get to the point of applying for funding, that's when you need to really map out your idea. And you can use the planning triangle for that, which is easily downloadable, but it's a triangle. And so if you think of a triangle, at the top, you've got the aim of the project. So what's the overall point of that project? In the middle, you've got the outcome, so the change or the differences you want to make. And at the bottom, you've got the activities that you'll be running, the things that are going to get you there. So the services you plan to deliver, who's going to deliver them and when. And that's a really useful tool to use. You also need to think about, at the same time, what will happen when the funding ends? So how are you going to keep it going, or what legacy will it leave? So planning will then lead you to your budget, and that will then lead you to what funders you can approach, because obviously every funder has different requirements regarding budget. So, what you can spend on what, and what percentage of your annual turnover you can apply for. So just do your research. Fine tune your research as well. Delve a little bit deeper. Study the criteria. Make sure that you definitely fit and you're not just trying to fit in, that this is the right funder for you. Find out how much they usually give. Look at people they fund and what they do. Also, consider applying for funding for pilot projects. So Awards for All is a really good way to get up to £10,000 for a pilot project, and then you can iron out the issues before you approach the bigger kind of multi-year funders. Remember, if you're unsure, get in touch with them, ask them questions, don't stop sort of communicating with them. Once you've done your research, of course, there's lots of research out there on all the funders. They put everything on their websites usually. In terms of your application, tell your story, make it clear and make it engaging. Read each question really carefully, and then be prepared to rejig, because often you'll think, oh, that answer's better in that one, so just be prepared to jig it about a bit. And obviously don't use jargon or abbreviations. If they don't ask you specifically, tell the funder how your service users have helped you shape this idea, and also let them know what's going to happen when the project ends. That's back to the legacy. What are you going to leave behind, or how are you going to keep this project going? Make sure everything's up to date, like your annual accounts, if you're a charity, your website's looking good, because they will check this. And we once got a no from Children in Need because it was a no based on due diligence, because they said one of our trustees was a trustee for another organisation who hadn't uploaded their annual accounts, and we actually we didn't get that application. So just check things like that and follow them up. So at this point, you'll probably be tired of reading this bid, so get someone else to read it and check it makes sense to them, and get someone else to proofread it, someone who's really, really good at spelling and grammar. So I get Paula here, the child contact coordinator, to read it. I talk to her at different points while I'm doing it, but she always proofreads because she's brilliant at it. And then make sure you've attached or included, if it's a posting one, all the documents you need, because if they're not in there, they might not read your application. They might just fall at the first hurdle. Then the scary bit, you've got to press submit. I'm submitting this application, or post it. There are some funders who still prefer a paper application, but pressing submit I find difficult. I just always think I want to go back and reread it, which isn't a bad thing, but at some point you've got to submit. And put a date in your diary that you expect to hear. And if you haven't heard by the date, just get back in touch and say, oh, can I just find out what's happening? When will I hear? If you do get a no, ask for feedback. Many don't give it, but some will. And if they do, take it on board and learn from it, like we did with Kelly Family Trust. And remember that there is a funder out there for you. So if you get a no, it's not nice, but there is a funder out there for you, and you'll find it. You'll get the funding for the project. If you get a yes, obviously, thank them for supporting you and follow their requirements for accepting the grant. So for smaller grants, that's just going to be an email thanking them or thanking their trustee board or a letter. And for bigger grants, there's more paperwork, but there'll be guidance on that. And there's also guidance on how and when to publicise. So don't go straight onto social media saying, whoop, whoop, we've got an awards for all bid if they've told you can't do it yet. Have a 3-year plan. So when you get multi-year funding, you start planning for your next. So if you've got 3-year funding, you start going, what we're going to do when that 3 years is up. So have that plan ahead. Start thinking about your monitoring at this stage. If you can build it into your usual day-to-day admin, that is absolutely perfect, because then there's not a mad rush when the year comes around, the funding, the monitoring's due. And my last tip is to be realistic with funding applications and the development of ideas, but don't let that hold you back. Be creative, let your imagination run wild, dream big, and share your passion for what you do. Thank you.
Dream big and share your passion. I think we've just found the new NACC motto. Thanks for sharing that with us, Kath. It certainly provided some food for thought. If you don't mind, would you answer some questions for us at the moment? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. From listening to your talk today, I understand that you can be successful at applying for bids without being a professional bid writer. I think that's sometimes scary for people, if they don't consider themselves a professional. It sounds to me like all the things you have learned have been the result of experience. Is that something you would agree with?
Yes. I mean, I don't consider myself a professional fundraiser or bid writer as such, but I've learned it as I've gone. As I said, I believe in sort of on-the-job coaching and mentoring. I had a really good manager who taught me everything he knew. I worked with my team, and I think that's really important. Like I said, Paula is really good at proofreading, so I would be a fool to not let her in. And so I'll talk to, say, Rosie if I'm writing something and I want it to be more child-focused or about additional needs. So bring everybody into it. But no, you don't have to be a professional. You just have to be good at your job and know what your project is. Yeah.
And by the sounds of things, it's quite time-consuming writing the actual bids. How do you manage the workload of that, and how often do you think bids are usually successful?
It is really time consuming. I suppose it gets less so the more you do, but some are harder than others, and like anything else, take longer than others. But I think it's worth it. So for example, I'm looking to put in a bid for children's pre-visits and familiarisation sessions, because I think that's so important. And we do it here at Buzz. We want to do more. We want to give it more time. We want it to be developed by the children who are going to come and have the visits. So for us, that'll be worth it. So I could spend half a week getting that bid in, or sort of like more than half a week actually. But if I'm successful with that, I think the benefits to our organisation will outweigh the amount of time that I've spent doing it. In terms of how often they're successful, I think it's just totally hit and miss. We've been really successful. We've had lots of lottery funding the lottery have given us repeat funding, as have Children in Need. You obviously have to put your bids in again and work just as hard as you did the first time round, but I think that's good. We've got good relationships with funders, but we've had a lot of no's. I'll still get a lot of no's. I could get no's in the post or via email today, and yeah, so just keep going.
Brilliant. We're really glad that you've been inspired by Mick Curtin from the NCDV. Mick is a great friend of NAC and speaker from previous AGMs. You mentioned him saying about, doing one thing and doing it well. I can hear this, really resonated with you and your centre, and that it's helped with your grant applications in itself. I wonder if you can tell me a little about why you think it's important to do this and how you think it helps.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of funding, most of the funders will have areas that are important to them. So I suppose when they come to research you, like with us, when they found out we were actually doing a little bit of everything, and actually, like with Kelly Family Trust, they were saying, well, we fund child contact centres and you're not that. So there are some funders who might be happy just to support work that's very, very varied. But I think it's really important to focus in on what you're doing. But saying that, we're a child contact centre, but we're still looking at parenting, mediation, really good children's pre-visits. We give out food. We join in with the Sheffield Shoebox Appeal and give out Christmas presents to mums who wouldn't get one from the child. So we do lots of things off that. So it's a spoke. They're all spokes off the wheel. But we now think we're at the point where we're saying yes, we do one thing and we do it well. Yeah. So yeah.
Really,
he is an inspiring man. We love listening to him. Yeah.
In your experience, do most funders have to be project specific, or is it possible to apply for unrestricted funds?
I think most funders are project specific, but you can apply for some, especially the smaller ones, for unrestricted. There was a lot more of that since COVID hit, where people were just saying, we can just help you out with what you need help with, tell us what you need help with, which is actually how I got the funding to do the accreditation and the mediation training, because it was about recovery funding as an organisation. And we'd obviously lost a lot of money during COVID with no fundraising, funding changing and not having income. So I got that for recovery. Yeah, so you can, but generally I'd say project based. Yeah.
In your top tips, you mentioned the importance of working with service users. I'm just wondering what the value of this is from the perspective of someone planning to apply for funding, and how you think funders perceive this.
Yeah, so I suppose from my point of view, if the service users have said that's what they want, I know it's going to be well used for a startup. I don't want to apply for something that no one's going to go, no, we're never coming to that, or we'll never do that. So that's really important to me. And it gives me the passion, because when I've heard why they want it, it really helps me write the bid. It's not just a clinical, I'm just writing a bid. I've just got the passion to get that money in to make that service for them, because I know how much they need it. And I think for a funder, same as for me, but also they know their money is going to be well spent. It's as simple as that, because that person, those people need that. They've said, they've voiced it, they've helped develop it and shape the service. So it's going to be a successful project. And yeah.
Brilliant. It's been really interesting chatting to you, Kath, really interesting. And every time I speak to you, your enthusiasm just comes across. It's just brilliant. Are you happy if we have some questions that we send them over to you from the centres so that we can help?
Yeah, great. I'm really happy to do that. Yeah, really happy to do that.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time today, Kath.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.